Hi, I'm Peter Deeney, the PA of the Wind Value Project, and here is a presentation on the use of the last few years of a wind farm's life for investment and what risks are involved. As a wind farm gets older, the value of the wind farm reduces, and so it eventually gets to a stage where it may become within the financial reach of communities living nearby the wind farm. So the question is this a good investment for them? Is it safe? So we look at cash flows using historic wind speed data and seasonal electricity modelling. Basic findings are that you shouldn't wait later than the last 5 years, and that the type of failure data you have is critical. Research questions. Is this idea of waiting to the end, does that reduce risk enough for what you would say non-sophisticated, non-professional investors? That's the big issue here. Methods, we use Monte Carlo system. We've got wind speed simulations to give an idea of the power production, failure simulations based on Weibull distributions. We consider also the possibility of wraparound contracts where the responsibility for repairs is basically farmed out to somebody else for a fee. And electricity prices are quite likely to stay more or less as high as they are, maybe a little less volatile, who knows. Electricity prices across Europe have been a bit unusual in the last few years. A huge spike due to gas prices going up because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and COVID didn't help either. As you can see, a huge spike there. So we're trying to model it on the relatively calm period beforehand, but with the higher prices that are now experienced. We're using a seasonal model. The reason for that is because electricity tends to be a little bit more expensive in the winter, but wind farm production is also bigger in the winter. So the synchronicity is important. You can look at the model there where we use a very straightforward cosine model. The result in this is the income is extremely seasonal, roughly twice as much per month as during the summer. Failure rates, we've taken these from Luca Bernardi's master's thesis using Tazi's paper. The K parameter for the Weibull distribution is estimated. Rotor blades are known to either fail at the start or not very much. Everything else tends to fail as a result of wearing out, which is why their shape factor K is bigger than 1. Estimated wraparound prices give the impression here that a new turbine with a wraparound contract will be considerably and reliably more profitable than either a life extension with no wraparound or a new with no wrap. This depends heavily on the estimation we've got for the wraparound price, which may be more or less reliable. I think it's quite reliable, but I wouldn't go risking too much on it. The important issue here is the volatility. As you can see, the wraparound volatility to mean ratio is quite reasonable, about 0.1 for most of the years remaining. We can see that the volatility of coefficient of variation is very high for 1 and 2 years left of the wind farm's life, and reduces considerably up to 10 years left, but never becomes as reliable as a wraparound. Another way of looking at these results is we're looking at the middle 90%. So from the 5% to the 95% of the profit outcomes. And you can see again that a wraparound contract is much tighter range of how far up 95% is and how far down 5% is. And there's considerable camming after about 5 years for the non-wraparound contracts. That's important. We'll look next at the probability distributions. Here with the probability distributions for a game where you win €1 on a toss going for you and you lose €1 if it goes against you. Nice and straightforward. A bit more risky, this one, because now you're losing or gaining €10. Note that in both cases the expected outcome is exactly the same as 0, but you might not be as keen on €10 disappearing as 1. In this case, we have a small chance of a large loss. This means that you're taking a big risk that something could go seriously wrong, but you're not expecting it to. This is the other side of that, where you're really almost sure you're going to lose, but there's a possibility of winning something. This is like buying a lotto ticket. So this is what the PDF means. You can have a look at that. Now, the PDF for a wraparound with 5 years left is basically a big lump. Not exactly symmetrical, but more or less unimodal. You can see that as you get less lucky on the left-hand side, your expected profit is reducing. If we try the same thing without the wraparound contract, that is with your own responsibility to fix stuff, and we leave it 10 years left of the one farm's life, it looks like at best you're going to be making 6.5 million if nothing breaks. And then you've got various basically lumps of probability for relatively small repairs to more expensive repairs. The most expensive taking you down to about 4.5 million of profit. 4.5 million, which is, you can see that's a bit jumpy. You move from one to the next. As the amount of time left decreases, you get to the stage at 5 years where the step between a 3 million profit and a 2.5 million profit is very wide. It's another little percentile of the expected outcome, and suddenly your losses jumped. You've dropped down. It's like dropping down a step on a staircase, and the last step is considerably lower than you're expecting it to be. So this indicates a low expected tail return, so that at the worst cases, they're quite bad compared to what you're normally expecting them to be. This only gets worse as the time left before end of life approaches. You can see here there's quite a wide gap, and it's getting even wider. This is because you're not really holding on to the asset long enough for the bumps to even themselves out. So conclusions: don't buy in later than 5 years to go. So if you've got, there's a time at which the risk is just not worth it. Clearly diversify your portfolio. That's standard policy everywhere. If you're able to buy a wraparound contract, that's good. That may not be possible with a second-hand turbine, or a turbine that hasn't got a proper maintenance record. And a note for the financing people: don't forget there's embedded options to include in your valuation. If you're buying a new turbine that is coming to the end of its life, you have an embedded option to repower or to life extend. Let's add a little bit of value. Thank you very much for your attention, and the slides are available on the project website and on Zoom. Thanks very much, and thank you to my mentor, Paul Deeney.